Hey guys, if you type in Airswap or Kyber into YouTube, chances are good you'll get either 1000x altcoin gems or technical analyses on these names. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. That's probably the majority of YouTube. But if you're more like me and you're approaching things more from a fundamental perspective, or you'd like to understand the technology behind what an RFQ protocol is, then this video is more designed for you. By way of introduction, I go by 10Bagger. I'm a former investment banker and buy-side analyst who's made a bunch of money at a young age, and occasionally I'll post some ideas, thoughts, and general recommendations onto YouTube. Welcome. Today, I'll be talking about the protocols powering Airswap and Kyber, specifically the RFQ or the Request for Quote protocol, which I found really isn't talked about on the YouTube community. So if you're considering an investment in one of these names, or you're looking at Huobi's announcement and you're like, WTF, does this all mean from a protocol's perspective, then I might be able to offer some of my thoughts because there is precedent for RFQ in the capital markets. If you look at the deepest and most liquid part of the capital markets, that's FIC or fixed income currencies and commodities, literally trillions of dollars trade in these instruments using these protocols every single day. It literally dwarfs the size of the equity markets. Two of my most successful personal investments have been in electronic RFQ companies, Tradeweb and Market Access. Like, how many of you guys knew that the best performing company on the NASDAQ over the last decade was Netflix? Probably a lot of you, right? But how many of you knew that the number two best performing tech company was an RFQ company called Market Access Holdings? I'm guessing much fewer. Now, I've studied market access extensively in my day job. Great business, great moat, strong network effects. They're one of the chief practitioners and proponents of RFQ within the fixed income space. The gist of the matter is that RFQ occupies a very important part of the value chain within the deepest and the most liquid part of the world's capital markets. And there's very little doubt in my mind that a crypto player that could serve as the market access or the trade web within the crypto markets can occupy a very valuable niche and generate tons of value for early adopters and shareholders. Now, effectively, what happens in RFQ is that you've got two different counterparties. You've got the dealers and the customers, or effectively the buy side and the sell side. It's a protocol in which buyers will solicit bids from the sellers at the best price. A customer submits his or her intent. All the dealers get a notification of that intent, and they have an opportunity to submit their bids to fulfill that order. And if they do so, then a trade gets executed. It's kind of like a more sophisticated version of Craigslist, where you've got bilateral negotiation, over-the-counter negotiation, but with relatively liquid and highly fungible instruments. Generally speaking, there's also a relatively high amount of automation in this market. All the orders are ranked in terms of competitiveness, so you'll usually see as a customer just the best 2, 3, or 5, or what have you. There are some drawbacks with executing on a club, though. Otherwise, all of the instruments would trade that way. One, it's better suited for highly liquid instruments, and two, which is very important, I would say, is that they aren't very well suited to executing very large trades or block trades. You would effectively be moving the market with your intent. You'd have the opportunity for other players to front run you, which is why, even though the vast majority of equities are traded on exchange today, a significant amount of activity still occurs away from the public markets or via dark pools. So generally speaking, the trades that would lend themselves more naturally to RFQ are those where the bid and the ask tend to be a bit wider, preservation of anonymity is important, and the trade sizes tend to be a lot larger. The problem is, right now, you need dealers with the authority, the pockets, and the inventory to buy into the crypto sphere before this can really take off. So in terms of where we are in the S-curve, I'd say we're probably right about here. If you think about what needs to happen, right? A dealer needs to be on standby to accept interest from buyers. They actually need to have the goods that he or she wants in the quantity that he or she wants it, and be able to respond in a timely fashion. On a market access or Tradeweb desktop, that's in the order of minutes, maybe even seconds, not hours. And then you need all the other dealers to do the same thing. It's a tall ask, but I would say there aren't a lot of players that hold this sort of concentrated authority. So it's a market that can literally shift overnight or move in quantum leaps with greater adoption in cryptocurrencies. But that's for electronic RFQ. Voice RFQ right now is absolutely happening in the crypto markets, which highlights the demand for this type of service. There are brokers right now who will charge 2%, 2.5% on each side of the trade. They're making an absolute killing on BTC and digital asset trades. I would say it's a natural progression of capital markets infrastructure. First, you have voice markets, just like the 80s and the 90s, then that lends itself to greater efficiency, electronification, satisfaction of regulators, better price. So a healthy voice market that's based more on relationships, which is exactly what we had prior to the global financial crisis, is exactly the kind of setup that I'd like to see, and one that lends itself to greater electronification of these protocols down the road. In terms of the specific players, at its core, Airswap is trying to build decentralized RFQ on the Ethereum blockchain. It's led by electronic trading veteran Michael Ovid, who I've met, the guy at Consensus. He comes across very well. I think he's the right guy for the job. They made a lot bigger of a splash back in 2016 and 2017. The hype has kind of died down before getting picked up by this broader rising tide in the altcoin market. So I'm a bit concerned that he might not have the right connections for this, or more likely the market is just not ready to move in that direction yet. It sounds kind of like a no damn dub, but what you really need is just for a few whales to really stand behind this project and back it. How did Tradeweb Market Access start? A bunch of dealers got into a room and said that they were going to submit liquidity and honor bids within this market. That's kind of the double-edged sword with RFQ, right? Whereas with an AMM such as Uniswap, it's a lot easier for everyday investors to supply liquidity onto its platform. RFQ is one of those things where, as per Airswap's website, it doesn't require nearly the same degree of democratization as Uniswap, but you just need a few successful market makers to start to adopt this thing. But when it does, I fully expect the platforms that have invested in this capability and the adoption to be the primary beneficiaries in terms of valuation. But yeah, guys, I hope that was helpful. What do you guys think about the potential of RFQ in the crypto space? How far do you think we are from that tipping point? I'd love to hear some of your thoughts in the comment section below. And with that, thanks so much for tuning in. As always, nothing is more valuable than your time, except for maybe your money. And I certainly hope to see you on the next one. Peace out.